a Zoom video in case you need to look at them. But looking at function notation, which like I said, you've seen before. It's basically equations with two variables can be written in function notation, or f parentheses x, but that's not how we say that. That is pronounced, or how we say it in math is it's f of x. So if you see this, this is f of x. If you had, for example, this, you would read that as f of 2, but basically you read it as f of what's ever inside the parentheses. So like f of 3, for example. A lot of times we rewrite equations in function notation or vice versa. So if you have the equation y equals 5x minus 3, that's the same thing as f of x equals 5x minus 3. Just basically, just understand anywhere you see a y or you see an f of x, they can kind of be used interchangeably. So like f of x really is just y, okay? So when we have f of something, we're really finding our y, if that makes sense. So if you solve or get that by itself, you really find your y. What's the point of function notation? I'm not going to read all this to you, but basically, instead of writing, hey, I want you to plug in 5 for x, we can write it shorter like this. So instead of writing plug in 5 for x, you could write that as f of 5. So it's kind of like a shorthand notation because mathematicians, just like everyone else, they're late. We're lazy. We don't always want to write out super long things. So we use kind of shorthand symbols or kind of notation to kind of represent it. So basically, it's just a shorter way to write like, hey, plug this in for that. And functions obviously are used for a lot of different things. Like you can make a function to kind of model a lot of different things. So like, for example, f of 5 could be how much money you'll have in your account after saving for 5 years, for example. Or so like, I mean, there you might not be solving functions on the daily. You probably won't in your job be like, hey, employee, I've got this list of functions I need you to solve. That's probably never going to happen. But a lot of the things you're doing in computers, I mean, really what it's based on is functions in a lot of cases. So let's jump in. Let's just look at some examples. So one thing, I'm just going to color code these. So we have 3 functions. We have our f function, we have our g function, and we have our h function. So you always want to pay attention to what function you're plugging into. So for example, this first one, you're going to plug in to your g function. So that's the green function. So I would have 8 plus 3 parentheses 4. Like remember, this is your x. So we're plugging in what g of 4 is saying. That's saying plug in 4 for x. So then you would just put this in a calculator, and if you work this out, you should get 20. One tip, like when you plug this in, you should always put parentheses around the x when you plug it in. And if you have more than one x, you're going to plug it into both. Let's look at a few more quickly. F of negative 5, so I'm looking at my red function. So that would be 2 parentheses negative 5 minus 1. If you plug that into a calculator, you'll get negative 11. But do you try and put these into your calculator, especially if you're using your phone? Make sure you're getting the correct answers, because if not, like I said, you probably want to use the Desmos calculator. So this last one, it's an h function, so we're plugging it into the purple. So I'm going to plug in negative 3 into both of those x's. So 5 parentheses negative 3 squared minus parentheses negative 3. And if you plug this in exactly like it looks, you should get 48. Just to kind of show you, so if you don't have a nice calculator, if you go to desmos.com/calculator, oops, I spelled calculator wrong. Like for example, that first one we did 8 plus 3 parentheses 4, you see it's 20. The second one we just did, 2 parentheses negative 5 minus 1, negative 11. 5 parentheses negative 3 up to the second power. You can do shift and 6, like the caret button, or if you click this virtual keyboard, there's a square where you can do a custom power. Then just make sure you bring your cursor down, and then it would be minus parentheses negative 3, but you'd see that's 48. So if you don't have a nice calculator, this online Desmos calculator does the trick pretty good. But how about you guys try these next 3 questions? So let me pull this back up. Oh, screen it. So how about you give these 3 questions a try though? And like I said, if you don't have a good calculator, try that Desmos one out. It does the trick. I'll write what it should look like. So like for this first one, you're plugging into the f function. So 2 parentheses 0 minus 1. So that is negative 1. But h of 2, just make sure that's the purple function up above. So it'd be 5 parentheses 2 squared minus 2. If you plug that in,
wait,
you should get
I ain't
18.
do that. I thought you were supposed to do 8 plus 3 parentheses.
Oh, that's see how it's the h function though? So you got to plug it into this function.
Oh, I wasn't even paying attention.
Yeah, so I honestly I made the same mistake earlier, like in one of my classes, so don't feel bad. That's a common mistake to make. Just be really careful. And you probably did the same thing here then. Like this
Yeah.
one should go in that green function. But if you do work it out, you should get 11. So that was probably your issue there. You probably just looked at the wrong function. But so that's how you evaluate. So anytime, and I meant to say this earlier, but anytime you see like evaluate a function, basically you're just going to be plugging in a number into the function. That's what evaluate a function means. So not a hard thing at all. Hopefully review easy as long as you have a good calculator. Like I said, if I would highly probably recommend not to use your phone because a lot of people make mistakes because it is really important for a lot of these questions. You put the parentheses, some of them you'll get away with it. But like, especially if there's exponents and stuff, that's a lot of times where you can get the wrong answers if you're not careful. So I would encourage you to use that Desmos calculator if you don't have like a red calculator or something like that. But the last few examples, I just wanted to look at some examples of evaluating a function where they're not like an equation or with variables. Like sometimes you can evaluate from like a table. So like, for example, f of 8, remember that's your x value. So you're going to look at your x values and you're going to see what you get out. Like you're going to plug in. So if you plug in 8, you're looking here. So if you plug in 8, you get 6. If you plug, so our next one is f of 1. So if you plug in 1, so you're looking here. So if you plug in 1, you get 2 for your y value. And then our last one, if you plug in negative 8, you get 5 out as your y value. So if it's like a table, you're going to go to that x value and see what y value it goes with. Same idea if you have a map in, like this is called a map in. If it's been a while since you've seen one of these, probably maybe since algebra 2, algebra 1, maybe. But f of 5, you always start with your x's. So you go to 5, see where it goes to in terms of your y. So that would go to 4. Negative 3 goes to 1. 2 also goes to 1. So just kind of look at which y value that x value goes to. Oops. So f of 5 was 4. Similar idea if you have a graph. Graphs are a little bit weirder, but you look at your x, let me see if I can draw a little bit straighter. So you always start on your x-axis. So like, for example, f of 3, you're starting at 3. So on your x-axis, start like at the origin. 1, 2, 3 would be here. So you're looking on this, basically this vertical line. Let me see if I can draw it a little bit better. Yeah, not too good, but not awful. So on that line, you want to see what point it crosses. So you should see like that point is 2 for the y value. Like, so at x equals, like this point is 3, 2. So when the x value is 3, it's up 2. Let's look at another one because f of -2, you would go to -2 on your x-axis. So you should see that this point is also 2 above the or like it's 2 above on that line. You have -3 comma 2 basically is your point. F of 4, you go over 4 on your x-axis. You want to see basically how far up or down do you have to go to get to a point. So you have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, like because that point is 4, 4. Let me know if you have any questions about the graph ones, because I know I feel like there's got to be a better way to maybe show this, but let's look at one more example. So f of 2, so you're going to go to 2 on your x-axis. So 1, 2, you'd be here. And then you want to see basically how far up or down do you have to go to get to your function. So like you would go up 1 to hit your line. F of -2, you go to -2 on your x-axis, and you want to see how far up or down do you have to go to get to your line. Well, you would go down 1, 2, 3. So being at -3. F of 0, you go to 0 on your x-axis, and you see how far up or down do you have to go. Well, you would just go down 1 to be on your line. So -1. But that's just a little kind of refresher on evaluating functions. There is an exit slip posted with 4 questions. Let me show you where that is.